I shuffled into my new high school, stomach in knots, just another loser in new school. Great. Then this shy guy caught my eye in homeroom. He had these big nerdy glasses and wore a Tolkien t-shirt. Adorable. When the teacher asked him a question, he stayed quiet even though I could tell he knew the answer. I leaned over. PSS, you know the answer, right? He jumped a little, then gave me a small smile and shrugged. After class, I caught up to him. I'm Gio, just transferred here. Oh, and he said softly. We walked together to the next class, bonding over our love of Stephen King book. First day, and I'd already made a friend. Or at least that's what I thought at the time. Later that day, I saw Owen again. But he was like a completely different person. He was on the football field, strutting around like he owned the place. A couple of his jock buddies were razzing him about some girl. Letitia was asking about you, one of them said with a snicker. Owen laughed coldly. Never, but she is cute though. Not with those rolls, she isn't. Another guy chimed in, and they all started cracking up. My heart sank. This couldn't be the same shy nerd I'd met earlier. The Owen I knew would never mock someone's appearance like that. His friends were vile, but he seemed to be lapping it up, high-fiving them all. When his steely eyes locked on me, I felt a chill. I gave him a friendly wave, but he just sneered. Hey you, what are you looking at? In love with me or something? He shoved me hard as his posse laughed. I swallowed the lump in my throat and hurried away. So much for making a friend on my first day. Just another bully pretending to be decent until his real cruel self came out. The next day in class, I ended up sitting next to Owen again. I was ready to just ignore the jerk, but then he leaned over. Hey, he said softly, not meeting my eyes. I raised an eyebrow. So you want to talk to me now? I'm sorry. What are you talking about? He seemed genuinely confused. I scoffed. Yesterday I saw you with the football team. The nasty comments, the shoving. His face cleared. Oh, you must be talking about my twin brother Andrew. I'm Owen. My jaw dropped. Twins? That would explain the Jekyll and Hyde act. Owen gave me an awkward smile. Well, I don't accept your apology, I said, trying to keep a straight face. Before I could go on, Owen let out this adorable giggle. What I meant was, I can only forgive you if you come with me to this comic convention on Saturday. I couldn't help but grin back. In that case, of course I forgive you. Just like that, I had a new best friend, though I was definitely going to have a hard time avoiding his awful twin. From that Comic-Con, Owen and I were inseparable. He'd come over almost every night to work on homework, read comics, or just hang out. I couldn't get enough of his quirky humor and endless Star Wars references. The more time we spent together, the more I started developing feelings for him. But it was complicated. His bully twin, Andrew, was making my life a living hell, constantly hurling slurs and tripping me in the halls. I didn't know if Owen even liked guys, let alone if he'd ever go for someone his psycho brother tormented. Owen never acknowledged the bullying, almost like he didn't see it happening right in front of him. I started wondering if he was just oblivious or didn't care. Still, my heart skipped a beat whenever he smiled at me with those warm eyes. There was definite chemistry and flirtation between us, but I was afraid to make a move, afraid of risking our amazing friendship if he didn't feel the same way. Crushes are messy enough without evil twin drama. Whenever Andrew messed with me, Owen was the one who could lift my mood. He became my safe harbor from that whole toxic situation. My feelings just kept growing stronger. One night, Owen and I were texting about how bored we were. All of a sudden, there was a tapping at my bedroom window. I pulled back the curtain to find him grinning at me from the tree outside. Get out here, you rebel, I laughed, climbing out to join him on the thick branch. I missed you, he said simply, inching closer on the tree limb. Owen explained his brother Andrew was hosting a rager at their place, so he had snuck out to get some peace and quiet. As we sat there watching the moonlight filter through the leaves, our eyes met and held. So I'm better company than a party, I teased, trying to play it cool even as my heart raced. Definitely, he murmured huskily. Then Owen leaned in and pressed his lips to mine in the softest, sweetest kiss. I was so shocked, I froze at first. Then I melted into him, pulling him closer and deepening the kiss with all the longing I'd been holding in. We made out like horny teenagers that night, which I guess we were, but it felt like so much more than just hormones. With Owen, I'd found my sanctuary too. The next morning, Owen took me on a real date to an abandoned ship harbor. We bought greasy fries from a food truck and watched the waves while he nervously admitted he was gay. My parents would disown me if they knew, he said quietly. And Andrew is a massive homophobe who already makes Gio's life hell. I squeezed his hand. We'll keep it between us as long as you need. There was an excitement to loving in secret, like when we'd sneak into each other's bedrooms for stolen kisses and cuddles late at night. The secrecy didn't last long, though. A few weeks later, I was at my locker when someone slammed me against it hard. Andrew was in my face, teeth bared as he rain blows down on me. I saw you kissing him, you fag. He raged as I crumpled to the ground. His friend Chuck pulled him off me. Easy, easy, a little squabble with your boyfriend. Owen came rushing over, pure fury in those warm eyes I loved. He decked Andrew hard, years of resentment unleashed. He attacked me. Owen shouted as teachers surrounded us. In the chaos, I locked eyes with the dean having an affair with Andrew. Screw keeping his secret. You want to know what's really illegal? I shouted to the crowd, sleeping with Mrs. Peters. After I outed Mrs. Peters' affair with Andrew, all hell broke loose. We got suspended as the school investigated, and the scandal rocked our small town. For days, I couldn't get a hold of Owen. My mind raced thinking about what his parents must be putting him through. I knew they were hardcore homophobes thanks to Andrew's vile rants. Good night, a coded text from an unknown number. They know I told you the secrets. My dad's furious I'm dating a guy. If they split us up, know I love you. My heart dropped. I begged Owen to get out of that toxic house, saying my family would take him in, no questions asked, but he didn't respond. I was a wreck until late one night when my mom called me downstairs. Owen stood there, eyes haunted, a busted lip and black eye. I pulled him into my arms as he broke down sobbing. After we got him cleaned up, Owen revealed his parents planned to whisk him away to some shady conversion camp. But he'd grabbed a file exposing all their illegal dealings first. Kickbacks, fraud, a mistress his mom knew about. I'd be just as bad as them if I protected their secrets anymore, he said, jaw set with determination. The next morning, Owen turned over the evidence that would finally bring his abusive family down. After Owen handed that bombshell file over to the cops, everything happened in a whirlwind. His dad tried to run damage control, but the evidence was too damning. Thanks to Owen's bravery, both of his parents ended up arrested on multiple charges of fraud, corruption, you name it. With his mom and dad in jail awaiting trial, Owen had nowhere to go. My parents took one look at his battered face and opened our home without hesitation. We set up the guest room for him while Owen's scumbag brother went to live with their grandparent. That first night, I woke up to muffled sobs coming from down the hall. I found Owen curled up on his bed, finally letting out all the pain and trauma. We cried together, holding each other tight. You don't have to protect them anymore, I whispered fiercely. You're safe now, I've got you. For the next few weeks, I watched the tightly wound boy I loved finally start to uncoil. For the first time, Owen got to experience what a real loving family felt like. My parents doted on him, my dad helping him apply for scholarships since his college fund was inevitably drained. So we made plans to get an off-campus apartment together after graduation. As the shadows slowly faded from Owen's warm eyes, I could see our future finally taking shape, a real chance at happiness, away from his toxic family's reach. The morning after Owen moved in, the local newspaper went nuclear with his files revelations. My parents' jaws dropped as they read the sordid details over breakfast. Owen's dad's mistress, his mom's kleptomania habits funded by bribery money, all the illegal crap they'd swept under the rug for years. Owen didn't flinch as reporters swarmed our door. They deserve whatever's coming, he said coldly. Within a couple of weeks, the media frenzy and relentless public outrage led to Owen's parents being arrested and charged. His dad's mayoral campaign imploded from the fraud allegations. His mom faced jail time for her crime. It was a reckoning decades overdue. I squeezed Owen's hand tightly as they read the charges outside the courthouse, his face unreadable. His brother Andrew hurled obscenities, blaming Owen for ruining their family. But Owen just stared at the circus with hollow eyes. I couldn't be complicit in their lies anymore, he said quietly as we walked back to the sanctuary of my house. His house now, too. What they did to their own son was unforgivable. But finally, exposing their darkness to the light seemed to life a tremendous weight from Owen's shoulders. For the first time, he could breathe freely without their toxic control. With Owen's parents locked up and his psycho brother shipped off, we spent those last few months before college pretty much just being typical teens for once. No more looking over our shoulders, no more darkness constantly looming. Just me and my guy, giddy with our new freedom. My parents welcomed Owen with open arms, determined to give him the stable, loving family he'd been denied. Mom fussed over him constantly, packing him extra snacks and doing his laundry. Dad helped him apply for scholarships and student loans now that his college fund had been drained. For the first time, I saw the shadows of Owen's past life gradually fade from his warm eyes. His dimpled smile came easier. He'd wander around shirtless sometimes, finally comfortable in his own skin instead of hiding who he was. We'd curl up on the couch, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and just exist. Lazy makeout sessions, dumb movie marathons, so many happy little moments we'd been robbed of living in fear and secrecy. It was bittersweet when moving day finally came and we packed up our tiny apartment. I caught Owen hugging my parents tightly, whispering grateful words through tears. Dad ruffled his hair, calling him son. "You'll always have a family here," Mom said fiercely. Owen nodded, smiling at me with those loving eyes. Our new adventure was just beginning. Our off-campus apartment was a total shithole, but it was ours. As Owen and I lugged the last of our boxes through the door of our new place, I couldn't stop grinning like an idiot. "Looks like we're properly adulting now," I teased, pulling him in for a kiss. But Owen smiled against my lips. "Just you, me, and freedom." After spending my childhood feeling like an outcast and under his family's twisted thumb, we'd finally carved out a safe haven for ourselves. A fresh start on our own terms. Of course, the honeymoon phase didn't last long. We bickered constantly those first few weeks about whose turn it was to do dishes, how many quarters we had left for laundry, all the dumb little nuances of cohabiting. But we always made up quickly with deep apologies and frantic makeouts. Making love in our own place, loud and uninhibited, felt like rebirth after so much repression. On the rough nights when Owen's demons resurfaced, we'd bundle up on our creaky secondhand couch and just hold each other close, his favorite old hoodies draping over us like a shield, no words needed. I'd stroke his scars and he'd trace mine until the darkness passed. We were building something new from the wreckage of our past. An imperfect, messy, beautiful life that was gloriously, totally ours. Our shithole apartment became a sanctuary, the one place where we could shut out the rest of the world and just be ourselves. Sure, I saw the scars of Owen's past every time I looked into his eyes. But for the first time, there was light there too. My heart would swell watching him take solace in the small things, cracking up at reruns of dopey sci-fi shows his asshole father never let him watch, or just unprompted bursts of that warm, uninhibited laugh of his that seemed to take years off his brooding exterior. Whenever I'd crack a terrible joke about how we were living the glamorous life, that dimpled half-smile would appear, and I'd know he got it, that we were still the same underneath, two unmirables in this shit show called life. Of course, there were still moments where that old anguish would creep back in, like the day one of the baby-crazed psycho neighborhood Karens recognized Owen's mugshot from the local Hellraiser files and sicked her dickbag husband on trying to quarter Cherokee my ass. The audacity of them bigot pricks still repulsed me, man. Owen would lament regretfully until I'd crack his knuckle menacingly again. His eyes would gleam with pride at the sound. Our roles had reversed, but we were still the same unmirables. We'd drink to that without fail, cracking ribs about the unmirably glamorous lifestyle our life of hard knocks had afforded us. Then there'd be that pause where it'd sink in that his eyes at least had been unmired, the cruel glimmers of those who'd unmirabled him now, quelled into a glorious, guiltless shiner. As the months rolled by in our shitbox apartment, I watched Owen doing something I never thought I'd see, learning how to be himself. Gone were the hunched shoulders and sidelong glances over his shoulder, always waiting for his parents' or Andrew's next attack. With them out of the picture, he started standing taller, cracking those inappropriate jokes louder in public without giving a fuck who heard. And me. I got a newfound appreciation for how goddamn lucky I was to have this irreverent, unbreakable force of nature in my life. Some nights I'd catch Owen spacing out, watching the single light bulb above our busted oven cast spectrums through the smeared glass. I'd slide up behind him, breathe in that stupid old spice he never changed, and marvel at the man he was becoming. 2 years ago, I was too chicken shit to make a move on you, I'd murmur, running my hands over the sharp cuts of muscle on his back. Thought you were too good for this loser. He'd turn in my arms with that wry grin. Then you would have missed out on all this glamour, baby. The sarcasm was our love language, a hard-won pride in surviving our train-wreck lives. With every scar and callus acknowledged, embraced, we were rewriting the narrative. We weren't two unmirabled kids making it in spite of the world's hate. We were conquering heroes, the victors of our own epic with the blistering rays of our future still waiting to be faced, side by side. No matter how many times my obnoxious friend called me a bully in those early days, I never saw it that way. We were just riffing off each other's rude comments like two unmirables embracing our chaotic nature. But looking back, I realized he had a point about that arrogant, smirking demeanor. Whenever Andrew spewed those nasty remarks, lapping up his posse's laughter, I was right there goading him on, drunk off the cruelty. In those corridors, I was as reckless with Andrew's name as he was with whoever we were mocking. It's kind of wild how us unmirables can be so blind sometimes to the hurt we're inflicting. Even then, despite all my obnoxious defensiveness, Andrew gave the impression that he had discovered something, an insight I hadn't yet grasped, that our airtight bond shouldn't have existed in the first place because of our mutually unmirabled nature. Looking back, I realized how unmirabled we really were to embrace our connection. Rerunning the tapes, I can see we belonged in that unmirabled world, one where we didn't have to hide who we truly were, unbridled by the expectations that came with being open. At the time, we missed the chance to give voice to our unmirrored self. The opportunity to be recognized as the unmirrorables we were just passed us by. Hit me where it hurt. Andrew, spell out the harsh truth I didn't want to acknowledge then. These days, when I catch Owen's reflection in the bathroom mirror as he's shaving, I can't help flashing back to those early days. The lost, skittish look in his eyes as he tried disappearing into the back, the dim sparkle any time his brother entered a room and instantly monopolized the oxygen. My chest tightens at the memory of just how unmirrored we both were back then. Me with my blustery overcompensation, Owen flinching from his family's very existence like their twisted approval was the only thing keeping him tethered to this earth. Then I'll feel his calloused hand on the back of my neck, that gruff rumble in my ear. You checking me out over there, perv? I'll turn and drink in the metamorphosis. The brilliant, unguarded light blazing from those warm eyes now, the easy grin, the unhurried confidence owning every particle of space around him. My unmirrorable, finally unmirrored. In these moments, I'm struck by how far we've traveled from lonely, unmirrored high school kids, suffocating under families and reputations we didn't choose, to a couple of grizzled, unapologetic warriors forging our own radical path through this chaos. We're underdogs who are backed into too many corners to ever stop fighting for an inch. Unmirrorables forever bound by the scars and insults that should have torn us worlds apart, but ultimately became the battle cry, rallying us together. When Owen leans in and claims my mouth with that familiar ferocity, I drink in the truth. Our happily ever after isn't some corny fairy tale. It's the bitter, triumphant roar of two unmirrorables who clawed our way through darkness to rewrite what happiness means for folks like us.